Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over all the games in Week 14 of the NFL season, starting with that Thursday night game, ending with the Monday Night Football contest. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below, and if you're looking for my best bets, you can always find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Week 14 of the NFL season. First up, we see your Thursday Night Football contest on Prime Video, this one between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. I do think both defenses stepped up quite a bit in this game. It'll be interesting to see who the Rams decide to go with at quarterback for this one, as they picked up Baker Mayfield off waivers. The Panthers placed him on waivers, and pretty soon after, the Rams decided to pick him up. And I'd say, even though I'm not a big fan of Baker Mayfield, when you got John Wolford really struggling, Matthew Stafford still injured, I say, why not take a chance on Baker? He's had some success at some points of his career in the NFL, not many. He has struggled mostly throughout this season and the last couple of years overall, but why not pick him up when you're a team that's not going to be making the playoffs? You're on a 6-game losing streak. Your quarterback's struggling, and Wolford, he had 2 interceptions last week, under 200 passing yards. But, overall, like I said, I do think the defenses step up in this game, and it's been the big thing for the Raiders as of late, is last week against a really good Chargers offense, holding Los Angeles to 20 points in that one. Raiders now on a 3-game win streak. Their defense has stepped it up. The offense also looking good as of late. But, the Rams, the one thing that has been solid for them, for this team overall this year, has been the defense. Hasn't been the greatest the last couple of weeks, but they're stopping the run, and that's important in a game like this. So I'm going to take the under. Primetime unders have been pretty good, so give me the under in this Raiders and Rams game. Next up, we see the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions. This one's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern start time. The Lions are favored in this one, laying 2.5 points. Total is at 53, so one of the higher totals you're going to see this week and really all NFL season. And, the Detroit Lions, they are on, they've won 4 of the last 5 games, and they're looking like a competitive team that may be able to make a push in the playoff race in the NFC. They are a game behind the Commanders and the Giants for that final spot in the NFC, but the way the Lions are playing, and then you look at their schedule, they do have a tough matchup here against Minnesota, but they are favorites. Then they go to New York against the Jets. It's a winnable game. They're probably going to be the underdogs, but they'll still have a shot there. And then you play the Panthers, the Bears, and then a struggling Green Bay team that may not even be playing Aaron Rodgers in that game. So the Lions' chances of having a winning season and maybe even a playoff spot, definitely not out of the question, and I like their chances to grab a win in this game. I watched that first game between these two teams in the beginning of the season, the Lions and Vikings, and even though the Vikings won that game in the end, it was a home game for Minnesota. At the beginning of the game, Detroit was moving the ball at will, and they had a couple injuries in the first half to some skilled position players, Amon-Ra St. Brown included, that kind of stopped their momentum, but they were really tough to stop for a Minnesota Vikings defense, and I'm not really the biggest fan of a secondary that's really struggling. And now you look at the last 4 games that the Vikings have played, giving up over 400 total yards. I don't really like this spot here for Minnesota. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions and lay the points at home. Next up, we see the Jets and the Bills. It's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Bills are 9.5 point favorites, total at 44. The New York Jets last week, they did not cover the number, and they lost the game outright to the Vikings 27-22. And, they were getting 3 points in that one. They failed to cover, but they outgained the Vikings by just around 200 yards. It was 486-287. Mike White has been moving the ball. This offense is moving the ball under Mike White, and back-to-back weeks with over 300 passing yards. But the big thing is his decision-making skills. We saw last week 2 interceptions, and I worry about that going on the road, a second straight road game against another tough defense, a very good secondary that's able to force those turnovers. I just don't really like their chances. I don't like the Jets' chances in this game to move the ball enough to score enough points to really cover the number in the end. I think that's just the key for me is the Bills' offense has really scored against any team it's played. It's similar to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills are scoring 28 points per game and over 400 total yards of offense per game. And we saw last week, even in a more defensive style, the Bills were moving the ball at will. They scored 24 points, but that 24-10 final score kind of misleading in my opinion. I thought it was just absolute dominant performance for the Bills. Now you're playing another game at home here, and Bills Mafia, a really tough place to play. I just don't love this spot here for the Jets. It's a tough game overall. A division game you would expect to be pretty close because the Jets have been competitive this season, especially on defense, but I just don't like this road spot. So give me the Buffalo Bills here laying the points. Next up, we see the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are 2.5 point favorites. Total is at 37. We've taken a lot of backup quarterbacks this season when they've had to step it up as a starting quarterback, and we're getting a lot of value with these types of games because the line is just inflated one way, that it's an overreaction by the books. When a starting quarterback goes down, I remember when Dak Prescott went down at the beginning of the season and Cooper Rush took over, the line went from, I believe the Cowboys were laying 3 points to they were dogs by 7, so a 10-point move. Just too much. And although this is not as crazy of a move in terms of the point spread, I still think getting the better team with, a drop off of quarterback talent for sure, but still, I think the Ravens have the better defense, and Tyler Huntley is at least a similar style to Lamar Jackson. He's able to, he's a dual threat quarterback. He had 41 rushing yards on 10 attempts last week, and his completion percentage was great last game, 27 of 32, 84.4%. Now, the issue was the passing yards per attempt, and the mistake of the interception. But overall, although I don't think that this Ravens offense is going to be as strong with Huntley at QB as it would be with Lamar Jackson, I think the Ravens are going to have a good enough game plan, especially with their strong running game and their good defense, to at least compete, if not win this game outright. So I think you're getting some value here. It looked like the line was going to be Baltimore -4 before Lamar went down. So this is a 6.5-point move for one player. I know he's a good player. Lamar's a great quarterback, one of the best in the game, but 6.5 points is just too much. We're getting a lot of value with the Ravens. So give me the points here with the Ravens. Next up, it's another divisional game between the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East. The Eagles are 7-point favorites. Total is at 44.5. We've seen the Giants step it up in games in the NFC East against the Cowboys, and they have struggled in those games. Even though they covered the number in their last game, it took a garbage time touchdown with 7 seconds left or 8 seconds left to get there. And overall, it was a dominating performance for the Cowboys, especially in the second half in that one. But they lost the other game against the Cowboys, did not cover the number in that one. And I thought that they were really lucky to grab a draw or grab a tie in that last week game against the Commanders, where they were outgained 411 to 316. I give them credit. This is a Giants team that's been able to have a defense that's bend but don't break, and they'll get outgained every game, but they'll still compete and still have a chance to win. And I give them credit. Brian Daboll's a great coach. I think it was a great signing. But just in terms of the matchup and the personnel between these two teams, the Eagles and Giants, I don't like this matchup for the Giants at all. The Eagles are rolling 3 straight wins after losing that game against the Commanders on Monday night, and last week it's just a dominating performance against the Titans, a pretty good team. 35-10 final score, 453 to 209 in the yard department. They're running the football well. They're stopping the run. I don't really like the Giants in this game. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles laying the points. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Cleveland Browns. The Bengals are 6-point favorites here. Total is at 47. I think it's a positive that the Browns were able to win a game and cover the number in the end, where their quarterback didn't even play that great. Deshaun Watson was not good in his first game with the Browns in the regular season. He certainly made his mistakes. They really didn't test him too often. Didn't have a ton of passing opportunities, only 22 total attempts. He was 12 of 22, only 130 passing yards. But like I said, you were able to win, score 27 points, and cover the number in the end. Your defense was the big reason for that. But, I think that's a positive thing to see, as I do think Deshaun Watson is going to improve as the season continues. And if he's able to produce just a fraction of what he was doing with the Texans a couple years ago, your offense is going to be in good shape and your defense is playing well. So, I think in a divisional game like this, where the Bengals are coming off that emotional win, a letdown spot, a clear letdown spot here for the Bengals after beating the Chiefs 27-24 last week. They're on a 4-game win streak. I do think the value with them is kind of slipping a little bit. I think the value here is honestly with the underdog. So give me the points here with the Cleveland Browns. Next up, we see the Jacksonville Jaguars take it on the Tennessee Titans. This one's going to be the Titans are laying 3.5 points. Total is at 41.5. I think that both of these offenses can benefit from the weaknesses that both of these defenses have. And, the Jacksonville Jaguars have struggled to stop the run basically all year long, overall giving up over 4 yards per carry this season. And the Titans, what do they like to do? It's run the football quite often. Now, they haven't been able to do it at a great yards per carry clip recently. But like I said, this is a pretty good matchup for them. And I think if there was a spot for this Titans offense, kind of a breakout week, this would be the one after back-to-back really lackluster performances on the offensive side. But on the flip side, I don't really like this Titans secondary, and we saw it struggle against the Eagles last week, giving up 386 passing yards. And the Jaguars, although they've been able to run the football for most of the year, the last 3 weeks, they've earned less than 100 rushing yards per game. Injuries have played a role in that, but they're able to pass the ball at a pretty good clip. Last week was not a very good performance by the defense, or by the offense, the passing offense. But against this Titans defense, I think the Jaguars will be able to move the football in the end, score some points, and I think this total set just a little bit too low. I think both teams benefit offensively in this type of matchup. So give me the over 41.5 in the Jaguars-Titans game. In our next game, we see the Houston Texans taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are huge favorites in this one, laying 16.5 points. Total is at 46. I know the Texans have been miserable last 4 weeks, 0-4 straight up, obviously, but 0-4 against the number as well, and they've been getting some pretty big numbers. Last week, they were getting 8 points at home against the Browns, failed to cover that number. The week before, I think they were getting 14 or so against the Dolphins. They lost that game as well by double digits, but more than 2 touchdowns. Against the Commanders, they were getting a few points. They lost the game by 13. It's just been ugly for the Texans as of late. But this is a spot where it's just too many points now. It's getting too outrageous. The Cowboys are coming off a blowout win, 54-19. Texans are coming off another blowout loss. And because of that, this line has just reached its peak. It's 16.5 points. You don't see that very often in the NFL. But when you do see these double-digit favorites, they really haven't been good against the spread. And we've seen even sometimes outright upset losses. So as much as I think the Cowboys are going to win this game and win it pretty comfortably in the end, there's just no way I can lay 16.5 points with any NFL team. So give me the Houston Texans here plus the points. I'm going to close my eyes and just hope for the best. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are 3-point favorites. Total is at 52. I think the Chargers have a fighting chance to win this game outright, so I'm going to take those points, that field goal, with the Chargers. Last week was a disappointing result. There's no doubt about that, and they're now 1-3 in their last 4 games. The Chargers are starting to struggle down the stretch where they really need to pick up wins. This is almost a must-win game here for the Chargers, but, I wasn't really impressed with the Dolphins last week, and they had a real chance to win that game against the Niners as Jimmy G goes down early with the injury, and Brock Purdy, who's really wasn't good at Iowa State, and he was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, he goes in at quarterback, and yes, he made some passes, but the Dolphins defense still struggling against the pass, even against a backup quarterback like Brock Purdy. Now you're facing an offense that's got some weapons, even with the injuries that they've had at the wide receiver position, and Justin Herbert's a solid quarterback. Again, in that last week, over 300 passing yards. The Chargers have not been able to run the football. The offensive line has struggled, but the Chargers passing game has still been effective, and I don't really like this matchup here for the Dolphins, who have just struggled so mightily against the pass against really any quarterback that they faced this season, giving up 67.6% completion to opposing QBs this year. The Dolphins have also not been able to run the football very consistently this season. That's been the Achilles heel for the Chargers defense, is stopping the run. But if the Dolphins are not able to run the football and the Chargers secondary holds up like it has most of the season, I think the Chargers defense has a fighting chance as well. So give me the Chargers here plus the 3 points. Next up, we see the Carolina Panthers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. This one's going to be the Seahawks laying 3.5 points. Total is at 44. Pretty steep total for a Panthers game, which is kind of crazy to think at 44 is a steep total. But, the Panthers have been playing so many low-scoring games this year. You would say, this is a little bit of a higher total than we're used to seeing. You look at the last few games, 23-10, 13-3, 25-15. Very low-scoring games. Yeah, we have a total here at 44. I think it's for good reason. This is another one of those contrarian total plays that we've had some success with this season, and I like the over here as the Seahawks offense is in good form. The defense is struggling. We saw it was playing very well when they were grabbing wins over teams like the Chargers and the Giants and the Cardinals, but the last 3 weeks against the Bucks, the Raiders, and the Rams, the Rams offense that has really a lot of injuries, no Cooper Kupp, no Matthew Stafford, they still give up 23 points in the end. The Seahawks are moving the ball, but their defense is struggling. I think if there was a spot for this Panthers offense to wake up, this would be the one. And we even saw in the last game for the Panthers, they put up 23 points. They've had 350 total yards of offense. I think this is going to be a nice day here for Carolina's offense. I like the over here in Panthers Seahawks. Next up, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they earned a nice win last week over the Saints. It was a comeback victory for Tom Brady. They were down 16-3. They found 2 touchdowns late to win 17-16, but I don't know about you, but I'm just not really impressed with the way the Bucs are playing. Yes, they're winning some games. They're 3-1 in their last 4 games, but they've been against some weak opponents, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Saints. Now you go on the road against a really good 49ers defense. Yes, Jimmy G is out for quite some time. He may be available for the playoffs, but Brock Purdy came in, and even though I was not really confident in his abilities, he showed up in a big way and got the job done for San Francisco. They still have one of the best running backs in the league, a good offensive line, some playmakers in the receiving group, and the defense, like I said, I think it's the best defense in the NFL, if not top 3 for sure. The Buccaneers defense was good last week, but it was against Andy Dalton, and, the Saints had their moments in that game offensively, even though they only put up 16 points in the end. We saw the Saints have some big plays, a couple other drop passes that were huge. critical. Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave, two huge drop passes that could have resulted in touchdowns. Jarvis Landry's for sure would have been a touchdown. So, I don't think the Bucs defense. I think the Bucs defense is a little bit overrated. I think the offense continues to struggle, and I like the San Francisco 49ers laying the points. Next up, we see the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos. This one's going to be a 4:05 Eastern start time on CBS. The Chiefs are 9-point favorites. Total is at 43. I am just really grateful that the NFL decided to step in and move this game out of the Sunday Night Football window and bring in the Dolphins-Chargers game, as really any game on the board other than this one, I would be more interested to watch in prime time. And the Broncos, what more can be said about this team? We've mentioned it every week here on the rundown. I'm not going to keep driving home the same point, but I do think that this week the offense for both teams, especially the Kansas City Chiefs, steps it up. I think the Broncos here can find a few garbage time touchdowns against a Chiefs defense that was really beatable last week. I would be concerned about the Chiefs defense going forward. But the Chiefs offense, bounce back spot here, coming off a loss. They've been able to move the ball and score a ton of points against any opponent, whether it's been a good defensive team or a poor defensive team. You even look at the San Francisco 49ers at the middle of the season where it was on the road, that the Chiefs honestly probably had their best offensive performance all year in that game, and that was against what I just said, the number one defense in the NFL. So I think the Broncos defense does not hold up in this one, but I do expect Denver to find a few touchdowns to get us over this total. So give me the over in the Chiefs Broncos. Next up, we see the New England Patriots taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This is your final game of the week. It's your Monday Night Football game on ESPN. The Patriots are 1.5-point favorites. Total is at 44.5. Now, I'm going to take the over in this game. I took a primetime under at the beginning of the video with the Thursday night game, but I like the over in this one because I don't trust this Cardinals defense at all. It has struggled basically from start to finish of this season, especially in the secondary. And I also have not really liked what I've seen from the Patriots defensively in the last few weeks when they've stepped it up in competition, especially. They have struggled in the secondary and in stopping the run at times this year as well. And they're also not getting as much pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Last week the Bills scored 24 points, but like I mentioned, I thought that score was misleading. I thought the Bills could have scored 30 plus if they really wanted to, because it was just a dominating performance from Buffalo. And even the week before against the Vikings, the Patriots giving up 33 points, the defense folding in the second half of that game. I don't trust it in this matchup on the road. Even though the Cardinals offense has been all over the place this season, I think we're going to get over this total here on Monday night. So give me the over in the Patriots Cardinals to end the week. And that's it. Those are the games for week 14 of the NFL season. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.